If you've had an encounter you would like to have narrated on this channel, send me an email with all the details. You can email it to contact@buckeyebigfoot.com. Hey there, everyone. Hey, we're getting ready to head out into Sasquatch Valley in just a moment. So be sure to double check that your saddlebags have snacks for you and the horses. And it might not be a bad idea to throw some extra apples in there for any wayward Sasquatches we run into. Oh, and if you are a Sage fan and you know who Sage is and you want to know more, be sure to have a listen on the backside of this video for an update on Sage. Otherwise, I gotta ask, are you ready? Me too. Grab your lantern, saddle up, and let's go. This comment was left by Chris Craftsman 3898. It was left on the video titled, Mother Bigfoot Helps Man with PTSD. So wild about the Mother Bigfoot. I had to walk out of a not-so-good situation at night, alone, in the rain, deep in the forest of western North Carolina, to get our van back to the trailhead. Me, my son, and my buddy got stuck under a rock overhang due to a sudden huge storm that lasted until past dark. I ain't gonna lie, I was scared walking out. I heard a mountain lion, even though they supposedly aren't in the area. Shortly after, I heard what sounded like a human walking on the ridge line above me. I can't really explain this part, but I got this overwhelming feeling. Someone was telling me, "It's okay, I'll walk with you. It won't follow anymore." I knew it meant the mountain lion. I could sometimes see a dark outline against the night sky on the ridge line by looking, but not looking, as I walked. But each time, I could tell I wasn't being sneaky, because the being knew I was going to try to look before I did. It was a mother. I don't know how I knew that, but I did. It somehow heard me thinking about encouraging myself to overcome the fear on behalf of wanting to get my son safe and dry and in the van. It or she related to that and offered help by walking me out from a distance. I don't really care if anyone believes me, but I did make it to the road and all the way back to our van safely, and I was able to pick up my son and buddy. That was a long, crazy night, and I'll never forget it. My name is Rhonda, and since I no longer go to this location and haven't since this interaction, feel free to use my name. This interaction took place in a wooded field near Big Rapids, Michigan, a location used for spiritual events with the group my family and I were a part of. We have been up there on one of these spiritual events and had been camped in our own individual tents, spaced a good distance away from each other. After dinner one night, we had all gone to our tents to sleep. However, most of us didn't go right to sleep. As we laid in our tents doing our own things in silence, as was part of our spiritual retreat, we all began hearing a clack, 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 clack. It sounded like two stones being clacked together. As the night progressed, my father and I both had trouble sleeping and were wide awake, alone on opposite sides of the encampment. All night we could hear the repeated clack, 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 and it was accompanied by the sounds of footsteps. My father says he didn't hear it, but I could hear quiet talking, like murmurs. It was just far enough away that they could be heard, but not understood. As light began to form, we, that is my father and I, heard an owl for the first time all night, and it didn't quite sound right. It then hooted in the same cadence as the rock clacks, a haunting hoo, 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 hoo. Yeah, I know, everyone's thinking, "Gee, Rhonda, that sounds just like a normal great horned owl. That's not scary." Except, like I said, it didn't sound quite right. My dad and I are outdoorsy folks, spending most of our free time out in nature. We both know very well how an owl sounds, and this sounded more like, well, like someone doing a good impression of an owl. You know the sound? It's something similar to the original, but just off enough that you know it was not the original. Well, that's what it sounded like. The next morning, the spiritual retreat ended abruptly, earlier than expected, if I remember correctly. I'm assuming it was more than myself and my dad who heard it, but we don't have contact with anyone else at the retreat anymore, so we can't confirm. My dad and I are both very strong believers in Bigfoot and feel they're definitely around. We've had other experiences, mostly just sounds. We would love to know if anyone else had heard anything like this before, and would especially love to hear if anyone else has experienced anything in that area. P.S. We love your channel and often fight over listening to your new releases before one another. Thank you for giving people like us a safe place to recount our experiences. Signed, Rhonda and her dad. Hello. Please, call me Jack. You can use my name. I'm too old to care. What does it matter in the grand scheme of things? There are many things in this world that are unknown. It is okay to believe. One weekend when I lived in California, a guy I knew wanted to go camping. Now here's a true story. My father was a full-blooded Native American medicine man. My mother was a nurse for 30 years before she passed. I was conceived in a teepee. They grew their own garden, and my father also was a hunter. Ma said she wanted to move closer to town so that she could have a doctor when she gave birth to me. When I became a teenager, I became a Boy Scout. So when this guy mentioned going camping, well, I had not been in the outdoors in so long to recharge my battery, so to speak, that I agreed, even though I really didn't trust the man. I really just wanted to get out in nature, and he knew where to go, so I collected my camping gear, and we were dropped off somewhere in the mountains in Southern California. To this day, I still do not know what the place was called. We camped out the first night, then stashed our stuff and started the hike up the mountain. Down by the stream, there were trees. The further up the mountain we went, the more scrub brush and Joshua trees we found. To this day, I have trouble recalling it properly. I'm remembering things in the wrong order, and it's hard to put the pieces back together again. This is the only memory that does this, but I will try to recall it the best I can. So we made it up to the ridge. We walked down what looked like a well-worn area. Not much of trails up there because it's mostly rock and scrub brush. We came across a couple areas where it looked like white rock. Huge pieces about a foot in diameter or so, set in a path all the way down the mountains for a little distance. I found that strange, but I figured it was erosion control or something. But in the middle of these rock fields, there were little areas that looked like brush overgrown right in the middle, which didn't make much sense. We came across one area which looked like an area set aside for graves or sleeping areas, now that I think about it. We had already hiked half the day, but I did not pay attention to the time or where the sun was. I know I was there in the area for 2 days, but these memories, they're spotty at best. We started hiking again, but that guy grabbed me and he said, "Stop." He looked off in a direction. Then he's like, "Go, run, run." I ended up somehow sliding down a section that had like a little tunnel of Joshua trees. I don't know how far I slid down, but I lost that guy. I did not see him again after this till about 3 days after I got back home. At the time, though, I thought the guy was just flipping out. I finally stopped sliding and crawled out of the thicket. I found a drainage ditch that was lined with those same rocks. I had lost my hatchet somewhere, but I was relatively unscathed. Didn't know where that guy went and didn't care. because I thought he was flipping out, like I said. I hadn't seen any live animals at all that I could recall. I felt like I was being followed, though. I knew if it was him, he would have yelled out or caught up with me. I felt like someone was trying to get me to run blindly over a cliff, which I knew was nearby. I just didn't know where. We had hiked a mile in or so. I found another rock field in those strange, thick vegetations right in the center of this rock field. I looked down, and there's a couple more down the way. I still hadn't thought anything of this yet. I was still worried about my crazy partner. I walked by this one scrub brush of a bush. I could see directly underneath it. I think it was a full moon because there were shadows, but it was never completely dark. The white stones may have had something weird to do with that also. There was a shadowy figure laying on its stomach under that bush. I pulled out a knife that another friend of mine had given me because, well, he didn't trust that guy either. It was a buck knife. I unfolded it and then thought better of it, so I put it in my belt pouch. But I left the zipper open so I could reach it quickly if needed. I took 5 steps and turned around. I saw this shadow figure crawl out, reach out, and grab the knife that I obviously had just dropped. Then the shadow figure went back under the bush. This was not the guy I came up here with. The only way I can describe it is there's this black paint that seemed to have no depth. Looking into it, it was like looking into space, but with no stars. That is what this shadowy figure reminded me of. I quickly turned around and went behind one of those brush areas in the middle of the rock field. I sat with my back to the brush, breathing hard, trying to calm my nerves. For some reason, I then looked behind me. I tried to look through the brush, even though it was impossibly thick. That brush went straight up, and I never found even a straight tree anywhere else around there. But I started looking through the brush, not really expecting to see anything, but at the same time trying to. Now, there's no way I could really see through it, but I did see something. I still remember as clear as day when I do recall it. I saw a very large eye, bloodshot red. Only saw just the eye and the ridge right around the eye. There was intelligence behind those eyes. Also murder. I turned around quickly, still sitting. I breathed harder and forced myself up on my feet. I started going downhill. I recall very little after that, until I made it out to our campsite. Now, somebody had ransacked everything at the campsite. So I grabbed up everything, cleaned it up, set up my bed, because, I wasn't going anywhere until I slept. I climbed the tree where I put the bag of food, ate, and then went to sleep. Dawn came. Still had not seen hide nor hair of the guy who came up there with me. Gathered up my stuff, broke camp, then started walking back to where we dropped off at. My ride would be coming soon. Tracking out, there were some people coming into the park, fishermen and hikers alike. One guy said he didn't think they allowed camping up there. Of course, I told the truth. I didn't know anything about that. My buddy took care of all of that, and he ran off on me. I finally made it to the entrance, and I waited for my ride. But for some reason, for many years, I could not recall the last part where I saw them. Now that dude showed up at my house 3 days later, with one shoe on. He said he had no memory of what happened up there. I have not seen him since. Now let's fast forward 20 years later. Was watching a Bigfoot program on television with my mother, and some of the memories started coming back. and it dawned on me what I had seen. The one I saw under the bush was a juvenile. He was about my size, and I'm betting he was my age or younger. I've had time now to study the memory the best that I can through my broken memories on that mountain, and this is my assessment of what I saw. The thick brush areas in the rock fields had to have been huts. That's why they appeared to be so thick. It was their type of camouflage. When I tried to look through it, one of the bigger ones was inside and was watching me. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Yeti, Yowie, and many other nicknames for this critter. Well, regardless, it's all the same, just like we are all human. We have many races, and so do the hairy tribes of the woods. Someone once said that it was a mistake to come out of the ocean. Others said that it was a mistake to come out of the trees. Obviously, these people never left the trees. That does not make them less intelligent. They are just as intelligent and probably just as, if not more, dangerous than a human. I have not seen any Sasquatches since, but after that day, I've seen things in the sky. We live on a strange world and in a strange universe. Scientists say water is everywhere, and where there is water, there is life. There's so many stars out there in space, you have to be crazy not to believe. It's okay to believe. There are many forms of life in the universe and on this planet. Kindness saved my life that day. So in closing, be kind, and it's okay to believe. Sincerely, Jack. Thank you for reading my story. I hope it's not too long-winded. I did the best I could with my broken memory. And thank you for reading these stories. They were the highlight of my mother's TV watching day. You and Dixie Cryptid were two of her favorites. Thank you. All right. Well, you know, Jack, I love to be in nature myself, but I have to say, I have never needed it so much that I would go into the forest and the mountains with someone that not only did I not trust, but that others didn't trust them to the point of giving me a knife to take with me. But I also don't know your mindset, and I don't know your lifestyle. For all I know, you're a scary combat vet who could handle anything, and you knew that. I'm just saying, listen, mister, you got some big ones. That's all I'm saying. I'm sure that many of you tonight have figured out already that I have struggled quite a bit with my voice through this presentation. It's part of why Tuesday's video was so short. I am recovering. I'm fine. Anyway, I just want to say I'm going to remind everyone that in 3 weeks from today, I'll be in Greenville at the Spirit of the Forest Bigfoot Encounter. I'll leave a link to the website in the video description below. If you want to go, browse the site, check out the activities and the speakers that will be there, including me. I don't even know what I'm going to speak on yet, but I'll figure out something, and hopefully by then, this voice will be completely healed. Either way, I think it's going to be a good time. All right, now listen. I promised all of you Sage fans an update, and here it is, so you can have a good look. Here's some new pictures of her. I'm giving this update because, believe it or not, I get a lot of comments about Sage and for Sage. I get emails addressed to Sage. I've gotten cards from the P.O. box and gifts for Sage. Now, some of those emails I get in the letters, well, they want to know more about Sage, what her personality is like, what her favorite treats are, all kinds of things. A lot of you may have been wondering why I haven't been giving more updates on her. Well, in her first year, I showed lots of pictures and I talked about her a lot. You know that. But it's like having a new baby. They're all sweet at first and you love taking pictures of them because they're just so doggone cute. And then wham! All of a sudden you blink and they're surly teenagers who won't get the hair out of their eyes and they won't give you a good picture for anything. Well, that's Sage right now. She's in what I call her terrible twos, and she is 2 years old now. If you have never had a cat, what that means is she's in her don't touch the fur kind of stage with a bunch of extra sass sauce on the side. It's like having your own personal little destructive velociraptor with fur terrorizing your house. It makes trying to get photos of her a little challenging, but here are a few more. Now, right now, Sage is, in a word, a tyrant. She rules this house with an iron paw. The other two cats in the house, which you rarely hear me talk about, that would be her mother, Sweet Pea. Here's Sweet Pea. And here's my 14-year-old cat, Noodle. Well, they are the ones who have to suffer her juvenile tantrums and bullying sessions quite often. Because trust me, Sage is a handful. She's not as cute and fun as she looks. She kicks the crap out of both of the other cats, even though she is the smallest in size and weight. Her mother weighs about 10 pounds, while Noodle, well, he weighs in at a jumbo 19 pounds. He's a big old chunky male cat, but she will run and barrel roll him just for kicks. I guess that's what she's doing it for. No other reason. Sage weighs roughly about 8.5 pounds, and she likes to take that run at Noodle, and she will barrel roll him into the next room. She's a strange cat. Now, when Sage is not bullying her housemates, she spends her days plotting the untimely demise of any errant mouse that happens to wander into the house from the 45-acre cornfield next to the house. She stays vigilant and can often be heard muttering how she wishes a mother mouse would as she patrols back and forth. She does still like her nip and her Temptations cat treats. Her favorite toys are mice made from real rabbit fur. Now, don't come at me, people. She's a predator. She ignores fake fur, even when it's been marinating in catnip for a few days. And then again, like all cats, Sage loves a good red laser dot chase. Mostly, Sage is an unholy terror right now, and she does not like to cuddle. Then every once in a while, she decides to look all sweet and cuddly, and some of these pictures were taken during those rare times. Mostly, like I said, having Sage, well, it's like living with a juvenile delinquent who still lives in her mom's basement waiting to be fed. If a plant was overturned in the living room, I guarantee it was Sage that did it. If the curtains are half torn down in the guest bedroom, that was Sage too. If the food bowls in the kitchen are all overturned and the kitchen has litter from the garbage can strewn all over the floor from one end to the other, yeah, that was Sage too. If I'm walking in my house in the dark and something suddenly attacks my ankle, leaving deep teeth and claw marks, that's definitely Sage. The other two do none of those things. If I find several spools of the most expensive machine embroidery thread that I own knotted and destroyed, I know it was Sage, because she doesn't pick on the cheap thread. No, Anyway, I could go on. You get the picture. It's just a truthful update on little bratty, saucy Sage. She went from a darling kitten to, well, something straight out of the 80s movie Gremlins after the gremlin got wet after midnight. If you know, you know. All right, well, that's quite enough for tonight, but I've had so many people ask. So there, that's a nice long update. And if you've stayed with me this long, all the way to the end, as always, I surely do thank you. But it is time to call it a night for now. But don't worry, we'll be meeting up again soon, as you well know. And as you well know, I'm going to ask you to always remember, absence of proof is not proof of absence. Thanks for listening.